Box.
Hello and welcome to Box, a Formula One courtroom drama. I am your defense attorney, Shannon Hayes.
I am the Honorable Judge Judy, Sam Cockcroft.
And I am the Prosecution, Merel Huseman.
Today, we're going to be doing the trial of Fernando Alonso. Totally in character and totally serious and not kidding at all at any point in time. This is a serious episode. Please take us seriously. So, the way it's going to work is we have 5 charges that the prosecution has brought up against Fernando Alonso in the case of Formula One fans versus Alonso. And what's going to happen is Merel and I are going to debate each one. She is on the side of the prosecution, and I am on the side of the defensive. And we will be debating each one, and then at the very end of the episode, our honorable judge, Sam Cockcroft, is going to be deciding on each charge whether Fernando Alonso is guilty or not guilty of that charge. So that's the basic rundown. Why don't we get into it?
All right, let's begin. Department of the Superior Court is now in session. I am the Honorable Judge Judy, presiding. Please be seated. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Calling the case of the people of Formula One versus Fernando Alonso. Are both sides ready?
Yes.
Your Honor. Excuse you.
Your Honor!
Oh, sorry.
Yes, Your Honor.
Yes, Queen.
Your Honor.
All right. The prosecution may now present their opening statement.
Honorable Judge, the prosecution is strongly against the return of Fernando Alonso to Formula One racing. We've seen the chances of becoming a driver are very slim. Since F1 teams only select top drivers who finish GP2 in Europe, only a small percentage of new drivers makes into this pool. So, a driver age 39 coming unsolicited into the F1 world is taking a place of a potential young man or woman who has fought the chance to come into F1 and start their career. In his last 4 years in Formula One at McLaren, he had terrible season finishes. What he brought was a terrible attitude, a cheater's mentality, and pure arrogance, fueled solely by his world titles from a decade ago. Fernando Alonso has been riding the wave of his 2005 and 2006 World Championships, achieving absolutely nothing since. He's made terrible career choices, and evidence shows every time he's left a team, within the next 2 seasons, the team bounced back and produced results once more. I'm here to prove to you that Fernando Alonso no longer belongs in the world of Formula One and does not deserve a 5th chance at proving himself. Comebacks, especially in F1, are always better in imagination than in real life, as the likes of Alan Jones, Nigel Mansell, and even Michael Schumacher have proven. Thank you.
The defense may now present their opening statement.
Your Honor, Fernando Alonso is one of the Formula One greats. You can put him in any car and he will consistently outperform his teammate. That is true of every season he has participated in except for 2 in a 2-decade-long career. Your Honor, if you would argue that his not qualifying for a world champion is due to skill and not the cars that these teams are putting him in, you are sorely mistaken. In fact, I would also argue on the point of you claiming that his return is unsolicited. Fernando Alonso is albeit one of the most controversial figures in Formula One, but also one of the most heatedly beloved. His return is greatly solicited, and many people were remorse when they found out that he was leaving 2 years ago. What you will see here today is that the charges being brought upon Fernando could easily be applied to almost any other driver on the Formula One grid. And yet we do not judge them with the same severity that we are judging Fernando Alonso today. I believe that this is due to the prosecution's bias in aesthetics. That is right. They deem other Formula One drivers more attractive than Fernando Alonso, so they will let him... they will judge him far more severely for the same crimes as any other Formula One driver, simply because they do not appreciate the quality of a good DILF on the grid. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you to both the prosecution and the defense for their opening statements. The prosecution may now present their evidence for the first charge on cheating.
Thank you, Your Honor. His cheating started at a young age, when he started his career in motor racing. Due to his early start, he left at his orientation university in 2000. His mother granted him permission to do so as long as he studied away from school. However, he disobeyed his mother's orders and seldom attended class. He achieved only a good academic record by relying on his classmates' notes and presentations. Now we go forward a few years. 2007, at Hungarian GP. Within seconds to qualifying, both McLaren teammates, Alonso and Hamilton, pitted to get ready for a lap to try and get pole position during qualifying for the next day. Alonso went in first, but he stopped for so much longer than usual, a whole 20 seconds, holding up his teammate Hamilton, who could then not continue onto his final lap. Everyone at the McLaren team was going mental at their stations. This was caused by Alonso and Alonso alone. Next, we move to Crashgate. As we know, this is a great scandal where Nelson Piquet Jr. deliberately crashed and triggered the deployment of the safety car in order for his teammate Alonso to go on to win the race. Again, great big scandal and cheating. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you to the prosecution. The defense may now present their evidence in response.
Your Honor, I would like to have the entire first paragraph of that scrubbed from the record. We are not here to discuss Fernando Alonso's accolades at school. We are here to discuss cheating in the Formula One arena. So I would kindly ask that that be removed from the record. Secondly, in regards to the Hungarian GP, is it possible that he did that deliberately? Yes, but we do not have any hard evidence that that is the case. In fact, I would argue that, if anything, is not cheating, but spite. It was not during a race, it was during qualifying. And indeed, why did he feel the need to pit for so long if it was deliberate? You see, McLaren had a strategy for those qualifying laps, and it involved Fernando going out of the pits first in the first place for that last qualifying round. But for some reason, Hamilton decided to go out first, and even when told to yield by his engineers, Hamilton did not yield and let Fernando pass, sabotaging Fernando's time. What we can see here is that this level of pettiness and drama between Hamilton and Alonso is two-sided. It's not just Alonso, and it's not cheating per se. If it's a spiteful act, he's not cheating his own way to victory here. He's just, he's getting back at his teammate who sabotaged him to begin with. We are not holding these two men to the same standards. Why? It's because we think that Hamilton is hot as fuck, but for some reason, we are not applying this same level of care when analyzing Alonso's motivations here. Indeed, Crashgate, I'll have you know, I would ask the court, was Fernando the one who crashed? Was Fernando the one that gave the orders to crash? No. It was the race engineers. And he is not the one who crashed. He had no deliberate hand himself in Crashgate. He did not take a single action of his own accord there to win that race. That was planned by the team to benefit Alonso? And are you a criminal if someone else commits an act that benefits you that you did not ask for? No. That is the truth. I rest my case, Your Honor.
I would like to acknowledge some of the statements made by the defense. We grant your request to throw out the evidence relating to Alonso's misdemeanors during his school years, as they are not relevant to his motorsport career. However, we would like to would like to ensure that the debate over Fernando Alonso's appearance and attractiveness wait until the fifth charge of being ugly.
Your Honor, if I may, all of these points hinge on that last point, and it is due to the fact that for each of these we are judging him much more harshly than we would any other driver who has been in the same exact situation. Every other driver on the grid has seen situations like these before, and they're due to attractiveness biases. So, Your Honor, if I may, it all circles back to a singular point, and we can address that overall at the last point, but I'm not going to fail to mention that aspect during this trial.
Fine. Understood. But please shorten this section of each of your evidence and keep it at a minimum, okay? Thank you. Would the prosecution like to respond?
Thank you, Your Honor. I would like to respond by saying, although these facts may have some influence, it does not justify his involvement in Spygate and Crashgate. He was still part of that, and it's something he could bring back to the next season. Having someone who is in the mindset of cheating should never be allowed back into F1. Thank you.
Your Honor, if I may. In relation to Spygate, it's interesting you should bring it up. Because in 2020, McLaren's 2007 test driver came forward, Pedro de la Rosa came forward, and essentially cleared Alonso's name for that entire incident. He said that Fernando, as figurehead, de facto, the face of the team at the time, got a lot of that backlash that he was undeserving of. When we look at this, what De La Rosa said is that it was basically water cooler talk. Everyone at McLaren knew this was happening, and if that's the case, we still are not holding Lewis Hamilton to this same standard, are we? Right? If everyone at McLaren knows about this and is chatting about it openly, why do we not hold Lewis Hamilton to the same standard?
I would like to provide some evidence against the case, against what you just said, if I may.
Defense, are you done? Are you finished with your statement?
Yeah, that's fine. I'll yield for now.
The text messages that were leaked were between Alonso de la Rosa and their engineer. Lewis Hamilton, as you said, did not know anything about this. Lewis Hamilton was the only wasn't involved in the text messages that were found, and lay the blame on Alonso and de la Rosa for knowing and not telling the FIA.
No, because, and let me tell you, if it was an open secret at McLaren that they had this information on Ferrari's thing, Fernando Alonso's a driver. He doesn't have the full 800-page dossier. If he's just simply discussing the fact that they have that information, then that's not incriminating.
If you say so, but I think it is. And also, he used it against McLaren boss Ron Dennis in order to stay with the team. He used it as the knowledge that he could leak that. He used it as leverage in the team. So he knew he had...
Right, but he didn't have the full dossier. And even after the Hungarian GP, Dennis came forward and said that he thinks that was just an angry outburst from Fernando. They made up. They were kind of chill
Even
after
so.
that. You know, and Fernando apologized for it too. It was an angry outburst. You know, if you hear rumors of this thing going on, and then, you know, you feel that you were slighted, so you bring up an empty threat. He doesn't have the 800-page dossier. He's not an engineer. Why would a driver have that? Who's sending that to Fernando Alonso? He's a himbo, is what he is, and he doesn't know what he's doing. He's just, you know. I rest my case. He didn't actually have the document.
But he
That's
had
not
the
a
knowledge.
crime.
I rest my case.
Okay. Are both sides... Do both sides have any more evidence to present, or should we move on to the next charge?
We can move on.
Yeah, we can move on for now.
All right. I will take all of this into account as I make my final deliberations after all we've presented our evidence on all of the charges, but for now, we'll move on to arrogance.
Okay. Thank you, Your Honor. Okay. Fernando Alonso's arrogance stems from his 2005 and 2006 world titles. That is something we cannot take away from him. Those titles he won. But from those wins decades ago, he has a long-lasting arrogance that is seen through every action he makes today. Alonso has severe disagreements with his team principals, as seen in 2014 with Marco Mattiazzi, and as he left his contract at Ferrari when it fell through. He's also called modern F1 predictable and ugly. I'm comparing it to his career in the early 2000s, suggesting that current F1 is boring, predictable, and simply not fun. His comments on the new regulations are, in a way, it has helped less talented people. They train a lot in the simulator, and they arrive to new circuits knowing exactly where the bumps are, where the curbs can take you, and where the difficult spots are in the race. He is suggesting that current drivers are lesser than him. His arrogance is incredible. Lastly, he has a samurai tattoo on his back. To show showing muscle strength and intelligence and force of will. If that is not the peak of arrogance, imprinting that onto your back, I don't know what is. Thank you.
The defense?
Your Honor. On the aspect of arrogance, yet again, could not the same be said for almost any other driver on the grid? Fernando Alonso has earned a level of arrogance here, not only from the 2 world titles, but from consistently outpacing his teammates in head-to-heads. He is such a talented driver that he has only lost in championships to his teammate twice out of his entire career. And so, when you look at the world championships, could that not be blamed on the car more than the driver himself? In fact, when we look at other very accomplished drivers here, we don't claim that they're too arrogant because we say, oh, they've earned it. They've earned the right. Lewis Hamilton can be arrogant because he's won so much. Sebastian Vettel has earned the right. Kimi Räikkönen has earned the right to be arrogant here. We find the arrogance in Daniel Ricciardo, a much less accomplished driver, to be endearing. Why? Because he's sexy as hell. That's right. Yet again, the bias against the DILF is showing from the prosecution. Regarding his comments on younger drivers, I would argue Sebastian Vettel has said the exact same thing. He has also argued that younger drivers are using sims like that to not be as good and like as naturally talented or whatever. You know, this is not an issue that is limited solely to Alonso. And that is why, if we are not going to bring up every other driver on the grid, why bring up Alonso? He is not unique in his arrogance. Thank you.
Thank you to both sides. Does the prosecution have any comments?
Not at this time.
Should any side like to present any additional evidence regarding arrogance?
Oh, actually, wait. I take that back. I do have something to say.
The prosecution?
Thank you, Your Honor. Regarding your mention of other drivers, you mentioned Kimi Räikkönen, you mentioned Sebastian Vettel, and you mentioned arrogance in relation to them. I have never, in the sense that Fernando Alonso has been arrogant, I have never seen Sebastian Vettel act like that. Sebastian Vettel cannot be compared to the likes of Alonso. Sebastian Vettel is a father figure. He is loved by everyone. No one would ever call Sebastian Vettel arrogant. Next, Kimi Räikkönen. Kimi Räikkönen is our favorite drunk uncle. You're mentioning that we target Alonso because of his looks. If there's anyone that has worse looks, it would be Kimi Räikkönen. Yet, Kimi Räikkönen is the most loved driver. Why? Because of the way he acts. His memery. His ability to not give a fuck about anyone. I rest my case.
Language.
Your Honor, is his ability to not give a fuck about anyone not a prime example of arrogance in the driver? I rest my case.
No, objection. That's incorrect.
Sustained.
He... The way he doesn't give a fuck is that he's there for a hobby. He loves the sport. Fernando Alonso, on the other hand, has come out and says that the way the F Formula 1 is structured now is ugly. He has called it ugly. So...
Objection, so has Sebastian Vettel. Also, there's that one video of Kimi who, like, his car breaks down and he's literally, like, riding it as all of his engineers, like, push it. And that might not be arrogance, but that's something. And I just want the record to show that.
He did it for the meme. That was pure meme content. Everything Kimi does is for the memery. So, I rest my case once more.
It seems that we have not had any significant evidence presented in the past couple of minutes. Just a good old back and forth between defense and prosecution. So it seems it's time to move on. And may I remind both the defense and prosecution to watch their language in the courtroom.
Yes, Your Honor.
Sorry, Your Honor.
Moving on. Our next charge is the case of identity theft and impersonation of a young driver. Would the prosecution like to present their evidence?
Thank you, Your Honor. I would. First, I would like to outline the definition and the intention of the young driver test. The FIA decided that for the 2020 season, at the end of the season, they would open an end-of-season run to inexperienced drivers for all the 10 teams. 2 drivers per team would be allowed to gain time in current cars to help bolster their experience. It was agreed that the test would take place in Abu Dhabi for inexperienced drivers. I would just like to highlight that. At 39 years old, with 2 world championships and 52,122 miles raced in an F1 car, Fernando Alonso is far from a young, inexperienced driver. The FIA was forced to change its inclusion rules because Fernando Alonso requested to take part in the young driver test. They changed their rules to include drivers if they'd taken part in some sort of F1 seniors event so that Fernando Alonso could be included. Although, even then, disappointment was expressed by Aston Martin and Ferrari, who still would not be able to include their drivers to test, such as Carlos Sainz. But Renault successfully lobbied for Alonso to be included in the test. Thus, he was dubbed one of the young drivers for the young drivers test. He took the place of many potential other young drivers who needed the experience at 39 years old. Christian Lundgaard, Guan Yu Zhou, all would have had the possibility of driving at the young drivers test, but Alonso, by impersonating a young driver, took that chance away from them. Thank you.
The defense, you may respond.
Your Honor, I would ask that this entire charge be scrubbed from the record. This does not have to do with Fernando Alonso. The issue here seems to be with the FIA and their ruling that he was even eligible for this test to begin with. When we look at Fernando Alonso, he is, again, not unique in this. Like the prosecution said, Carlos Sainz tried to do the same exact thing, and he was denied because of the fact that he is a current driver. Do I agree that the FIA should not have ruled in Alonso's favor here? Yes, I agree. He shouldn't. But that is an issue I take up with the FIA. I don't take it up with the driver himself. Fernando Alonso is not guilty of this. Indeed, Renault is more guilty than Alonso is for even trying to lobby it to the FIA. This is not a problem with Alonso himself. This is a problem with the FIA, with Renault, and the system at large, you know? And again, we don't hold it against Carlos Sainz for trying to get in there because he has that sexy ass hair and those deep brown eyes that could just look into your soul. And we are holding him to a different standard than we are to Fernando Alonso. I rest my case.
Are there any additional comments on either side?
Well, I would just like to say that Fernando Alonso, although I completely disagree with your points, because a direct quote from Alonso was that Alonso was heard, quote,
Order.
Okay, Alonso was heard having said, honestly, it's not very important about the young driver's test. If that is so, why did he insist on becoming a young driver in order to be included in these tests?
Your Honor. First of all, I don't think he insisted on it. I think that was Renault's part. But also, you know, even if he did, when you walk into any CVS or Walgreens, what is the first thing you see? Skincare products, anti-aging. We all want to feel young again. Can you fault the man for trying to preserve his youth? If he wants to feel like a young driver again, so be it. I rest my case.
Interesting evidence from the defense.
Thank you. Thank you, Your Honor.
I think it is time we move on. Our fourth charge is anger issues. And yes. I would like to acknowledge ahead of this that the defense has already presented evidence in favor of the prosecution during our first charge of cheating.
If I may, Your Honor, just very quick then. If we're playing like that, the prosecution did the same thing last case. They said their arrogance was unwarranted because they were not a skilled enough driver to warrant the arrogance, but then they said they're too skilled to put, like, 2 world champions, all of a sudden he's this fantastic driver. He shouldn't be participating.
Objection. I said he used to be a great driver. I never said he was now. I said after 2006.
Well, then maybe he needs the experience. He's inexperienced.
It seems there are some discrepancies in the prosecution's evidence, if you would like to clarify.
What I was saying is that Fernando Alonso is riding his wave of success from 2006 and pretending that he is at his peak, that he maintained that peak from 2006 all the way to 2021. I did not say that because of that he now is an inexperienced driver. I don't know where you got that from.
The other way. You're saying you said that he was his arrogance was unwarranted.
Yeah.
Because since those 2 world championship wins, he hasn't done anything.
Yeah.
But then somehow those 2 world championships make him too experienced to participate in the world.
I said that because he'd driven 52,122 miles in total, that doesn't make him an experienced driver. He has all the miles.
But doesn't that warrant a little bit of arrogance?
Absolutely not.
He's been behind the wheel so long.
Kimmy started at exactly the same time as him. Do we see this from Kimmy? No. Did Kimmy ask to join in the young driver's test? No.
Well, Kimmy wasn't coming out of retirement this year. So...
Let's move on. I think I've won this. I've won that point.
Excuse me, it is my decision whether or not we move on.
Your Honor, please tell us if we've moved on. Thank you.
I will take all of these comments into consideration as I deliberate at the end of our trial. But for now, we are moving on to the 4th charge of anger issues. Prosecution, you may present your evidence.
After the 2007 Hungarian GP, as mentioned by Shannon, a huge row ensued, and Alonso shouted at his boss, Ron Dennis, and Alonso effectively held the team to ransom by threatening to leak emails to the FIA that directly relate to Spygate. He only wouldn't do so if McLaren made Hamilton run out of fuel during the race. So, I'm sorry, but that major anger issues there. Then, a few years later, he was heard saying about Johnny Herbert, who was a previous F1 driver and now journalist, saying, "You ended up a commentator because you could not be a champion." Furthermore, Fernando Alonso punched a hole in his hotel room wall at the Singapore GP in 2017. He was later heard saying that he was angry what had happened at the Singapore GP, but that does not lessen the fact that he left a gaping hole in his hotel room. Lastly, there have been significant instances of Fernando Alonso on his team radio shouting at his team. One such incident was at the Brazilian GP in 2008, where about halfway through the race, he screamed, "No more radio," for the rest of the race. Another incident was when he was talking about the Honda's engine and shouted, "This is embarrassing, very embarrassing. It feels like GP2. I rest my case.
Could you clarify when that last statement was made? Was that during a race or?
Yeah, during a race.
Okay.
Unfortunately, during a GP. And it was directed at Honda's engine.
Thank you. The defense?
Yeah.
You know, all F1 drivers need passion to pursue this sport. And this is not uncommon to see these kinds of outbursts within the drivers. So, you know, we see it. Max Verstappen, every single race has like a mental breakdown. You know, Kimi Räikkönen tells his engineers to shut up all the time, very aggressively. It's not uncommon. These are all common traits among F1 drivers. You know, honestly, he's probably guilty of this one. I'm not even going to dispute it that much. Yeah, he's an angry dude. Like, they all are. They're all angry. If we want to do, like, a plea deal on this one, that's fine. That's, you know.
It's the punching the wall, I think. I really got you there.
Yeah, the punching the wall. I'm just like, yeah, you know, he's angry. That's it. He's an angry boy. Aren't they all? The defense rests. I don't have any other comment.
Fair enough.
Shall we move on?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah? No other comments?
No more comments.
Yeah, he's angry.
All right.
So.
Well, I think this might be our most contentious charge. Here we are on our 5th charge here of being ugly. Prosecution, you may begin.
Fernando Alonso is ugly. That's a fact. He's ugly inside and out. His huge ego, willingness to take the spot of well-deserving rookies, like the likes of Callum Elliott or Robert Schwartzman, says enough about his character. After blatantly stating that he does not see himself coming back in 2019, here he is once again, his ugly face taking a seat of a well-deserving rookie. His big eye, this big eyebrowed, cocky know-it-all is taking the seat of beautiful drivers like Christian Lundgaard. Wouldn't you prefer to see Christian Lundgaard at Renault over this 39-year-old Fernando Alonso?
Harsh claims.
Damn.
I know, I sure would prefer to see Christian Lundgaard. I rest my case.
The defense?
The defense posits that this courtroom does not appreciate a good DILF when they see one. This man ages like a fine wine. Young Fernando, he's a bit awkward, he's kind of dorky, a little pasty. But current Fernando, that stubble, the current chin, Your Honor, Fernando today could clap cheeks. I put him into one of those online prettiness calculators. I uploaded his photos. You know what he scored? 75% attractive. That does not sound like an ugly man to me.
Objection.
Not only that.
Overruled.
Speculative.
The defense, if you may provide this evidence.
I meant objection, that's personal opinion. What's the word for that?
It's not. I literally put it in to a calculator.
If the defense may provide this evidence.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can provide. I didn't take a screenshot of it, but I can do it again right now.
Prior to my deliberations, I would like to see this evidence.
Okay. I would also, yeah.
I would also ask if the defense is willing to submit, a handful of other drivers to see what their ratings are.
Comparison.
Well. Just
exactly.
for comparison and.
Well, that would be the prosecution's onus.
That's true.
If the prosecution had thought to do that ahead of time,
If the prosecution would like to submit other drivers...
We have enough DILFs. Kimi, Vettel, Lewis.
Through this same system.
Yeah, I shall.
Thank you.
Look, it's not my fault that I thought to do this ahead of time, okay? I feel like this should be a point in my court for finding the online prettiness calculators and throwing his face into it.
75% sounds good,
low.
But I'm not sure about the scale.
It's above average, that's for sure.
I'm not sure about the scale of this technology, and I would like context before I make my decision. That's all.
Okay. Well, anyway, aside from the, objective empirical evidence that this online prettiness calculator gave me, the man speaks 4 languages with a sexy Spanish accent, and I have a...
After it was a good battle with Jenson and Luis for the podium, and at the end it was good. A little bit of help from Michael to stop Luis in the majority of the race, but it was good to taste the podium again here in Monza. Yeah.
I don't know about your guys' panties, but mine are moist, I'm not gonna lie. So, anyway, not only is he good on the outside, he can be good on the inside too, Girls love a bad boy, so I wouldn't chalk up the anger issues to be an issue here, Girls love a bad boy, that's a fact. Secondly, he regularly donates to children's charities. He's good on the inside. He does that consistently. He donates to children's charities. He gives games and sports equipment to kids in underfunded communities. And in 2020, he donated 4,000 sets of PPE and 300,000 masks to frontline healthcare workers. He's actively helping with the coronavirus. Yeah, and so he's a good bad boy in and out. Thank you.
So I'd like to clarify, you're arguing that he is both a bad boy and a good boy in defense of...
He's a good bad boy.
Okay. Thank you. Prosecution, you may respond.
Thank you. Thank you, Your Honor. In regards to the accent, all drivers have accents. They're European. It's their thing. I would like to point out that had he not taken Christian Lundgaard or Elliot's seat, we would have heard different types of accents. Would you not have liked to heard a Danish accent?
Your Honor, I'm good. I prefer the Spanish accent to a Danish one.
I would like to further on my point. Carlos Sainz, Spanish accent. We already have a Spanish accent. Why do we need another? Why do we need a 39-year-old man to return for the Spanish accent? We don't.
If we're gonna argue on the sexiness of accents here, then the first to go should be Lance Stroll, and that is a fact. So if Eilert or Lundgaard are gonna replace anyone on the grid, it is Lance Stroll based on accent alone. The defense rests.
Compelling evidence. Does the prosecution have anything to add?
I would just like to add that in terms of donations, Alonso is not the only one. Unfortunately, I do not have any evidence at this time. But I know for a fact that most F1 drivers have donated to good causes. So that cannot be the sole point of evidence to say that Fernando Alonso is a good bad boy.
That wasn't the sole one. There was like 3 others. It's that he's sexy as
No,
hell.
we already...
He's got a cool accent.
Yeah, I just refuted that point. That's not right.
Yeah, the defense rests.
Is there any additional evidence that either side would like to present regarding any of the 5 charges before I proceed to my judge's chambers to deliberate?
All good here, Your Honor.
Yeah, no, I think, me too. I would just like to reiterate, Your Honor, that Fernando Alonso is taking the seat of many potential drivers. He's also taking the seat of potentially what could have been the first female F1 driver.
Should we move on to closing statements, or was that your closing statement for the prosecution?
No, not really.
So closing statements then. Would the prosecution like to go ahead?
Sure. Well, maybe.
Sure, fine.
Your Honor, as I've stated, this 39-year-old is taking the seat of rookies who have much potential, who are just starting out their career. Fernando Alonso has cheated. He's been involved in scandals. He is an arrogant, impersonating person who needs to go and manage his anger issues. He's taking the seat of what could have potentially been Jamie Chadwick's inaugural season at F1. He does not deserve to have this seat, and he's just riding on his wave of fame from 2006. Thank you.
Thank you for the prosecution. The defense, you may present your closing statement.
Thank you, Your Honor. I think what we see here today is an unfounded bias against Fernando Alonso that hinges primarily on the last charge that we've seen here today, which is attractiveness. We've held Fernando to a different standard than every other driver, and in every single charge we've seen another driver who has done something similar or worse. And it is not fair to hold Fernando to this standard just because we don't see him for the DILF that he is. In fact, some drivers' careers don't even begin until they're Fernando's age. I believe the oldest Formula One driver was 46 when he won his world championship. Hold on.
Juan Manuel Fangio. I can pull the name for
Yeah, Fangio. Yep, Juan Manuel Fangio. 46 when he won his championship. What I'm saying here is, just because he's older does not mean that his career in F1 is over. And in fact, the fact that he is returning only demonstrates a passion for the sport that we have to appreciate as fans. How can you not want to keep coming back to a sport that you love? The defense rests.
Thank you to both sides for your evidence and comments on Fernando Alonso. I will now deliberate.
Oh wait, let me present the evidence. Am I pretty scared?
Oh, that's right.
Oh yeah, I need to
God, I
see
should have
some.
screenshotted it.
Did you send
my
it to
bad.
us?
I really thought that was gonna be the nail in the coffin. I was like, oh man, I've got an objective test.
Because I don't know, like, what other people are scoring on that. Like,
I was just hoping the lack of other evidence would be enough.
Yeah, that's fair. Because, my judge bias in favor of the prosecution.
I wanted to find the shittiest looking one, so that's what I did.
His worst
So
picture?
that's... No.
Oh.
The shittiest looking, like, it's such a bad app. You'll see. You plug something in, it's so stupid.
No, because I was going to say, if you used one of his terrible pictures and got 75%, then that's just, like, that's the most compelling evidence right there. Like, him beardless, looking nasty.
Oh, the beardless ones are so bad, dude.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so, I mean, I would just pick a couple drivers
Kimmy.
that you...
Like Kimmy and... Who else?
I'd maybe pick, like, one not attractive and one attractive driver and see where they score.
So like Kimmy. What?
I told you, I picked the stupidest one.
This is so
I think
dumb.
Just to make it funny.
But I'm struggling with the young driver and the anger issues.
I would just like to remind you that he punched a wall and left the hotel room like that.
Well, what is he supposed to do? Fix the wall? Like, he's supposed to go to the hardware store, fill it, and, like, paint it?
Yeah. Aw, Kimmy got 60%.
Okay, but that's...
can't say
I feel
I'm
like that's
surprised.
pretty good, that there's only a 15%
But also,
difference.
that just justifies
true.
my point. That just justifies my point that we already have ugly drivers. That's
Okay,
not why it makes a difference. Let me try with different photo of Kimmy.
Well, no, we need to move on. So try a different
so we
driver.
need an older driver that's hot. I mean, Lewis is 35. Let's do Lewis.
Do bald Seb.
Bald Seb, put that hairline all the way back.
Also, this is gonna show how accurate or inaccurate it is, because, I mean, Lewis does have a perfect face. So, like, if this test says anything below 80%... 64!
That's just how sexy Fernando
Oh my
is,
gosh,
dude.
no,
I don't know what
Okay,
to tell
that
you.
That just means that your evidence is
I don't know what to
invalid.
tell you. The test thinks Fernando's hot as fuck. Like,
Wow.
What if I do Carlos then? Because that...
Yeah, do
Oh, I'll
Carlos.
do
just because I'm
Because
curious.
he should be getting... Carlos should be getting a high one. Or should I do...
do
I'll
Charles,
do
too. Charles has a clinically perfect face.
I've made my
so-
decision
yeah.
on this charge already, but I just want to
Okay.
know.
I'll
So-
do Charles. Okay, I'm just gonna do his... I mean, all of his photos, he looks good.
I know it's not part
I'll
of a...
do-
Oh, you can see my
I'll do the
things.
Armani. I'll do the Armani one. Okay, Charles got 82.
See? See?
I'm a little concerned by
See?
the fact that Lewis didn't do better. But...
I
don't
know.
Alright. I think I'm ready. Court is back in session. I have deliberated in my chambers and now have a conclusion to our exciting trial of Fernando Alonso. So I'll begin on the first charge of cheating. I find Fernando Alonso guilty on 2 counts. On the charge of arrogance, I find Fernando Alonso guilty on 1 count for impersonating a young driver and identity theft. I find Fernando Alonso not guilty.
Hey!
On the charge of anger issues, I find Fernando Alonso guilty on 1 count. And on the charge of being ugly, I find Fernando Alonso not guilty.
Yes! Oh, that's a home run for me.
Okay, so I will now explain my
Yeah.
decisions
Please.
here.
Yes. Please.
Please
just
do.
cause.
I would like to know why you think he's not ugly.
I didn't say that I don't think he's not ugly. I said that we'll get there. We'll get there.
Yeah,
We'll
okay.
begin with cheating. So, I think undeniably, Crashgate and Spygate are the 2 largest cheating scandal things that have happened in Formula One. And he was involved in both of those. Though there, is compelling evidence that it was not his decision to cheat to win in Crashgate. But it was his benefit, and I think we've seen through past, penalties with the FIA that even if things were not necessarily your intention or your fault, if you benefit from it, then it is still you who has to face the consequences.
Also, I forgot to say this, but he was the only person involved that didn't get any, fine.
Yeah, so if he didn't get any fine, he at least has to be found guilty in the
exactly.
box court. With Spygate, there is compelling evidence, in my opinion, surrounding how Lewis Hamilton was also involved in the situation, and we're not really talking about his involvement, though I have to say that Lewis Hamilton, really didn't do anything, and then also he was a younger, more inexperienced driver at that time, and Fernando Alonso had been in the sport for a couple of years, and, should have known better. Which is not really a good reason, but he should have known better.
I love that this is all, just not really stuff that I said.
Well, because I think that,
No, you were able to form an opinion with the information that I gave you.
Yeah, but I also
Sam's
think
job
that,
is to synthesize.
I think the hard part was that the defense provided compelling evidence.
Yeah,
and I felt that
really did.
my response had to address that evidence.
Thank you, Your Honor. I was very impassioned.
I think, is there any clarifications necessary on my decision for cheating?
No.
No.
Okay, arrogance.
fine.
Moving on. I first of all like to just toss out the tattoo claim. We don't have time to go through each of the driver's tattoos.
Time to unpack that one.
And I mean, who knows how many tattoos Lewis Hamilton has? We don't have time to go through those and what they might mean. I think his arrogance to a certain degree is warranted because he is or was a talented driver. Remains to be seen. But definitely was a talented driver at one point. But the degree of his arrogance, I think, is a little unwarranted. You don't see the same kind of behavior, like we said, from Kimi or from Seb, who are arguably more talented than him. So yeah, could have been stricter with that one, but he is talented.
No,
we
fair
can't. We
enough.
have to acknowledge that, despite the fact that I don't like him. I'm trying to be objective here. Okay.
I appreciate it. It's good. You're doing a good job.
All right. Young driver. Impersonating a young driver. So I found Fernando Alonso not guilty. I think it really should have been on the FIA. They shouldn't have. I think the same could have been true for a lot of other things in which he benefited, but it wasn't really his fault. But in this case, I think it is fair to say that if any other driver had that opportunity, they would have also taken it. So I think it's unfair to ask him to not participate in the young driver's test because he was eligible. Like, he shouldn't have been eligible, but that's not his fault, and I think, like, if any other driver was eligible,
Fair
they would
enough.
have done it, and I think it's unfair to ask him not to, because,
Yeah.
like,
That was one of the main
experience.
points. So, like, a lot of the points I had, I was just arguing to argue. That was one that I genuinely do believe. It's like, it's
Yeah.
really not his fault that he...
Yeah, it really should have been on the
Just
FIA.
FIA shouldn't have let it happen. Yeah.
Yeah, they really
Yeah.
should not have let that happen. Because, like, he did say it's not that important, but are you really gonna pass up an opportunity to get to be in a car and get that
Yeah.
practice experience? Like, I just think that, like, yeah, other teams were trying to get their drivers in, like Carlos Sainz for Ferrari, that it doesn't make sense. That was just a clusterfuck of a situation that I don't know. Anger issues. I think the punching the wall is really just it. Like, that's why I could have charged him on more counts, but I think the issue is that all drivers have anger issue. I would completely disregarded the team radio comments, because if we wanted to look at all of the team radio comments from all drivers, there's just too much to unpack right there. But the punching the wall thing, I think, is very compelling evidence.
I agree. It sounds right. Like, I believe it.
All right, and finally, on being ugly, I personally do not find Fernando Alonso attractive, but the pretty scale seems to think that he is, and I can also understand how other people might find him attractive. Also, the accent thing is just really undeniable. So
Yeah. It's true.
Fair enough. I wasn't expecting that one. I'm gonna be honest. I'll give you that. That was pretty
Yeah.
good.
I think, yeah, I overall I can't say that he is not ugly, though I do not find him attractive. I think the main struggle with my deliberation is that a lot of your evidence on both sides was presented in relation to other drivers, which I'm still unsure if I should have taken the route of Fernando Alonso is still guilty of all of these things. It just means that we need to have another trial in which we examine every other driver.
Every driver.
Well, I was only arguing that side mainly because I was like, I mean, these things are true of him, but they're not unique to him.
Yeah.
So if, like, some of the charges, I was like, like, he's angry, but look at Max Verstappen. Like, you know, it's it.
Yeah. I think that's where the struggle is. I think that's maybe why I chose to disregard the team radio. But
Yeah.
overall, like I said, compelling evidence on both sides. Fernando Alonso is still guilty of many things, and he kind of weighs sentencing. All right. Thank you so much for attending our trial. I hope you found all of our evidence interesting, if not the slightest bit compelling. Please follow us on our socials. We are BoxBoxBoxPod on Twitter and BoxBoxBoxPodcast on Instagram and TikTok. Court adjourned.
Do what your gut tells you.
Honestly, my gut is siding with Shannon. So I don't know if you want that.
It's just because Shannon is way more articulate than I am.
Yeah, you're literally arguing in your non-native language.
All
I do have the home court advantage, I suppose. We'll do a round 2 in Dutch.
Yeah, let's.
See, but then I might just have to side with Shannon again because neither of us speak Dutch. So.
We'll do a round 3 in Spanish.
Okay.